In 2005, I was just 19 when I volunteered to go to Iraq and look for roadside bombs. My service changed my life. After 20 years, I want to help veterans tell their stories. Grab your whoopee, sit back and relax. I'm your host, Joseph Yankton, and this is Rank and File.
We got lucky because we never got hit. But the intel briefings before every single day that we go outside the wire, we have an intel briefing with an intel officer, and everyone was involved. And so every single day they're just like, well, yep, another squad got hit by an IED. Like these guys died. This Air Force EOD squad died. You know, these Army guys died, got hit by an RPG, died. And so like every day you're just like, fuck, I'm gonna die. You know, and I think the thing that kind of made me realize that I was kind of done after this deployment was my daughter had been born in 2010. And when we deployed, I was just like, man, I'd watch her grow up on Skype. That was torture, dude. Like I could deal with getting shot at. That was fine. It was watching my daughter grow up on a computer. That sucked. And I didn't want to be that kind of dad. So that was, I kind of made the decision, like, I think I'm going to get out. Well, luckily we never got hit on that one. There was a couple firefights here and there. You know, we weren't involved in those. I wasn't, at least. You know, so we got away pretty scot-free. But like, there was this route called Gladius. We'd go down that route. That was a red route. So we knew that if you go down that road, you're either going to get shot at, you're going to get an RPG, something's going to happen. But we'd hit that route like once a week. And every single time we went down that road, we'd come out, and as we were turning off, an Army squad would be going down. And next thing you know, we hear firefight going on. So we'd go back to try to stop them. And every time we got there, the firefight just ended. So like, we never got to play. You know, it sucked. And that it's weird.
It's like QRF?
Yeah, so we were the QRF for the base. So like anytime we got mortared, we would spin up and go, right? So there was one day a week we had QRF duty. We'd just sit in the day room and play fucking Risk, you know, play Xbox, like just chill. Like we weren't allowed to leave the room though. Well, we weren't allowed to leave the building. We could go outside on our phones and shit. We had, the best part was we had a driving range in our compound because we had our own compound. And we had a driving range that was right into a minefield. So we had a jar going for the first person to set off a landmine with a golf ball gets the pot. Wow. And never happened. We ended up creating an RC car. My buddy Kent had an RC car. And we fixated a rake on the back of it to drive the RC car out to get golf balls and bring them back with a rake. We retrieved so many golf balls. I think it was Top Flight sent us a cooler of golf balls. And we had so many golf balls at this place.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, it was cool. And then got back from that, and I ended up going to Airman Leadership School. So when you get your E5, or when you get your 3PO 5-1, your CDC level 5, you got to go to Airman Leadership School. It's like NCO Academy essentially. So in order to be an NCO, you have to go to leadership school. Mm-hmm. At this point, I had been in so long, you know, because I got my dick slapped in 2010. I couldn't rank up for like 2 years.
Oh wow!
So I ended up getting selected for staff, but I ended up getting out. So the day I sold on staff was the day I got out of the military. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't E5 technically, but I was E4 Mafia for quite some time. Yeah. But I was in leadership school, and I don't want to dig into this too much just out of respect for her, but I had found out that my wife had been cheating on me for 6 years with multiple people who were my friends.
Jody?
That was my exact moment. Like, I am definitely getting out of the fucking military. I'm done. So finished that, you know, did my thing, ended up getting out. And when I got back to Minnesota, this was like August 2012, I was on terminal leave until October. And so I get home, it was late August, early September, and find out she's pregnant with my second kid. So I'm like, all right, we got to try to make this work. And so we tried that, and it sucks, man, because like I didn't have a plan. I just got out, right? So initially I started as a pizza delivery driver because my wife's brother was working there as a manager, and I was doing that for like a week, and then I got hired as a bouncer downtown at Epic Entertainment Center in Minneapolis as a bouncer, and I kind of needed that, but it ended up turning into me just taking out my anger on people. And it was just Nick kicking the shit out of people every day.
You weren't de-escalating anything?
No. I was looking for a reason to kick the shit out of people. You know, so I would drive pizza delivery in the morning, go home, take a nap, go to the club, and about a month into it, I developed a cocaine addiction. So we do lines of
How much
blow.
were you getting paid?
Not a lot. I never paid for it.
Oh,
There's a guy there that just always had it. He's like, "You want some?" I'm like, "Yup." So
sweet gig.
yeah, I got lucky. Right. Well, I shouldn't say that. Cocaine's bad. It's a hell of a drug. But that turned into, almost a year of just me waking up, drinking an energy drink, delivering pizzas, going home, taking a nap, going to the club, doing coke, beating the shit out of people, and coming home and smoking weed to go to bed. I don't know how my heart didn't explode.
And then repeat.
Every day. And I had like one day off a week. And I realized that life was going to kill me. I ended up getting in a fight at Aqua, and a guy pulled a knife on me. And I got pretty lucky because a buddy of mine was behind him, grabbed the knife, and I knocked him out. And we took him to the secret room, which most clubs have a secret room where they take care of people.
Okay.
And that guy
solved the problem.
That guy got a beating of a lifetime, for sure. But after that, I was like, I got to get out. And I had started doing carpentry again. I'd been doing carpentry in the summers since I was about 16. So I started doing carpentry again, and it was for the owner of the club. I was remodeling the St. Anthony, Maine, right down Minneapolis in Northeast. And he didn't pay me for like a month. And I'm like, dude, I got to pay my guys. And I pretty much told him I was going to beat the shit out of him if he didn't pay me. So needless to say, I didn't work at the club anymore after that. So I got a job as a carpenter with Pinnacle Wall. I worked for them for a month, and then I got a job offer for the Minnesota State Patrol as a dispatcher. I'm like, perfect.
Isn't Pinnacle the union? No.
Yes. Yeah. So they were getting ready to start sending me to classes, but because this was fucked up, they gave me a day off on a Tuesday, and so I scheduled my interview on that Tuesday, and then they called me that day, like, hey, we need you to come in. It was the day before that we need you to come in tomorrow. I was like, well, I got a job interview at the State Patrol. They called me back 2 hours later, like, yeah, we're just gonna have you not come in anymore. I'm like, okay, when do you want me back in? They're like, no, you're fired. And they're like, if you're not gonna dedicate your time to us, I'm like, I don't even know if I have the job. Right, so I had to pick up odd jobs for a month. My buddy Oren brought me down to his shop, and I just changing out transmissions and trucks and dropping engines and stuff. Like, I tinkered with mechanics, so like I kind of figure stuff out. When I grew up playing with Legos, right? So like mechanics just makes sense to me because it's just Legos, right? Which piece goes where? How does this work? Yeah. And that's why carpentry kind of makes sense to me too. It's because it's just you're putting the puzzle together, right? Like this stage.
Carpentry's not that easy.
It's pretty fucking easy. Like, it's hard work, but in essence, it is pretty simple.
There's no problem solving with Legos.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but it's very similar, right? You're taking too much pride in it, bro. It's all good. Like, yes, carpentry is a very skillful job, right? I get that.
Well, we're probably if everything was easy to put together, carpenters wouldn't need to exist.
It's easy for me because my brain. It's very simple. Yeah. It's not hard at all. And that's why, I still make, $1,500 a week here and there, just doing a floor, because it's so simple to me. So I started doing that, and then I got hired at the State Patrol, luckily, and I did that for about 8 years, man. It was a tough job. Simple
did you get
in essence.
Academy?
What's that?
Camp Ripley?
No, I was a dispatcher. Okay. I wasn't.
Oh, this is where the dispatcher piece comes in. Okay.
So I got a job at the State Patrol and fell in love with it, man, because like it was just enough chaos to where my ADHD brain was happy, but it was safe enough to where I'm not going to get hurt, right? So like there was no risk, right? The only risk was getting somebody else hurt. And so like I truly loved it, man. I dove into that thing. And
your 911, were you on the receiving end?
Yeah, it was 911 dispatch, right? So we only did highways. So like any kind of like local stuff, we just send to the locals. But I kind of became the suicide guy. And for some reason, all the suicides came to me. And so there'd be guys standing on bridges and I'd have to talk them down. And I got really good at it. And I started to finally like feel like I was a part of something again. And then 2015 came around. And 2014, I started training jiu-jitsu again because I wanted to get my shit together because I was drinking every night. And with dispatch, you're listening to people scream on their phone because their son's hanging in a basement, or you're talking on the phone with somebody who just got in a crash and their friend's dead next to them. You got to hear a lot of terrible shit. And for me, it was just, I just compartmentalized everything and buried it. Oh, sorry. I lost the magnet thing.
There's a clip on it.
I know, I had the magnet on though. Sorry guys. 1 second. There we go. So Where was I?
You said you would just bury it.
Yeah, I would just bury everything, right? And then I didn't realize that my drinking it was because of my PTSD, right? The way I handled things, the way I was always stressed out, always yelling at people, like I was always pissed. Like I was not a very good dad at that point, and I wasn't a good husband because I hated my wife, because she cheated on me, and I hated her. And 2015 came around and found out she was cheating again. I just found out that my daughter was autistic. Which that's hard, man, because like we knew something was wrong, but like once you get that diagnosis, your blueprint of what your daughter is going to be is gone, right? She's never going to live on her own. She's never going to have a boyfriend. She's probably never going to talk. She's still nonverbal. She's 12 now, and it's hard to accept, because you want your kids to be successful. You want your kids to live lavish, beautiful lives, and now your daughter can't talk. She can't get dressed by herself. She can't go to the bathroom by herself. You got to do everything for her. And it's just like, that just destroyed me. And then to find out my wife was cheating again months later. Now, during the whole club scene, I had strayed off too, because again, couldn't stand her, hated her, and I did, I cheated on her a few times too. And I'm not proud of that. It's definitely not something, I wouldn't say I'm ashamed of it anymore. Definitely not proud of it, but it's something that happened in the past.
And that's who you are anymore.
It's no longer who I am,
right?
So 2015, after I found that out, I decided to go out to the Boundary Waters, and I went there with the intention to kill myself. I didn't bring any food with me. I just brought fishing pole. I did bring some breadcrumbs and some oil though, because I don't like regular fish. I like breaded fish. My last meal was going to be good.
Wow. Okay.
So I canoed out there, and I went about 14 miles all the way up to Basswood Falls, which is right on the Canadian border. Not a person around, right? No one's going to hear me. My goal was to kill myself in a spot where wolves and bears could get me, so nobody would have to see it, because I didn't want to burden anyone else with my bullshit, So I spent the week just being a man. There was a stream that I could kayak down. It was like a rapids. So I'd take my kayak down there. I was actually having a great time. I love the peace. I love the tranquility. It was perfect for me. But I was making a video.
The irony is pretty awesome.
I know. Essentially, I was making a suicide video. Right, it was all the shit that I've been through, my childhood, the deployments, Michael killing himself, the cheating, all these things that just destroyed me. And I said, fuck it, this is why I'm doing this. And so my intention was the last day I went to this specific spot, and I put my phone in a Ziploc bag, and I put my ID in there, my wallet, everything was in there. It was gonna be right next to my body, so people could identify me. And my intentions were to just have the bears eat me, And so I finished the video. I finally said my last goodbye, put the video down, and I put the gun up to my head, and I sat there for it's probably about 5 minutes, just like, do I really want to do this? And then finally, like all the negative shit just overwhelmed me and shot through me. It was like this, I have to do this. Like the world is going to be better without me. And I pulled the trigger, and my eyes were closed, and I remember hearing the trigger squeeze, and I heard the click, and everything just went white, and my eyes were still closed, and I had this weird rush of energy just shoot through my body, and it's still really strange to think about sometimes. And sometimes when I meditate or I get in a really deep thought, like nowadays, sometimes I think about it like, am I still sitting there dying? Because they say that your life flashes before your eyes before you die. Am I getting a preview of what life would have been, and I'm still sitting there dying? Like, that thought terrifies me sometimes, dude. So it's like, I don't think it's actually happening, but sometimes when that thought creeps in, it gets pretty scary. But it's kind of set me up to who I am today. The reason why I am who I am and what I do is because it's like, if I'm still sitting there dying, I might as well do everything fucking awesome. I might as well do all the cool shit I've ever wanted to do. I'm going to treat people the way I want to be treated. I'm going to just do my best to help end as much suffering as possible, because I don't want people to feel that,
Would you classify what you experienced as like a spiritual experience?
I don't know.
We haven't talked about God at all. I
wouldn't say that. I would just say it was a life-altering experience. That's for sure. And after a few minutes, I opened up my eyes, and I was sitting right at a lake. Waterfall is behind me, And it was like the most beautiful, vivid colors I've ever seen in my life. Like the water was so blue, the sky was so blue, the trees were so green. And like out of a movie, dude, like an eagle dives down and catches a fish like 50 yards in front of me, flies over to a rock, and he's sitting there eating it. And I just break down, dude. I'm just sobbing. And
did you check the round?
Yeah, so after a little bit, I ended up looking at the gun. And I have a Springfield XDM, and it's got a bullet warning to show you that there's a bullet in the chamber, and it was still sticking up. So I'm like, what the fuck? There's a bullet in the chamber. Why does this not go off? So I dropped the magazine, pulled the slide, and I looked, and I had loaded over 100 or over 1,000 rounds of ammunition, right? All 9mm. Never had a misfire ever in my life. And so I look at it, and the primer was struck, but the primer was a dud. So I'm sitting there just like, this is fucking bullshit. So I break down again, reload the magazine, rack the slide, and I sit there.
Same round?
Different round.
Okay.
So I'm sitting there with the gun against my head, and I'm just like, there's no way this happens twice. And it was just, I just had that same energy that flowed through me after the first one. It flowed through me again, and I'm just like, what the fuck? And I just fucking screamed at the top of my lungs, and I shot all 19 rounds off into the lake.
No misfires.
God damn it. I can't even kill myself. And then I just felt like a failure again for a few minutes. But I remember sitting there, and when I stopped crying, I took my phone out and I watched the video. And it was a bunch of videos all together. So I watched all the videos, and I remember watching it just crying. And I'm just like, I remember looking at the video like, I feel so bad for that kid, and it was me. But I was like, I don't want to be that anymore. So that was kind of the moment where I was just like, fuck that. That guy's dead. And so I deleted the video, deleted everything, and I was just like, fuck it, that's not me. And I decided from that point on to change. I was gonna be an example. Now I wasn't gonna be a kid that always plays the victim. Everyone hates him. Nobody likes that kid. I just didn't want to be that anymore, So I sat there for a little bit, and I remember thinking, I'm fucking starving. I was like, I need a fucking burger. So I packed up all my shit, canoed back, and I pulled into Virginia, Minnesota, and I went to the sawmill. And there's this beautiful bartender sitting there. So I sit right at the thing. There was no one else there. And I was like, I'll take the biggest cheeseburger you guys got. I was like, in fact, bring me 2. And so she brought me my food, and I looked like shit, dude. I hadn't showered in a week. I showered in the water, but I just looked like shit, and I fucking start crying again. And it wasn't necessarily sad. It was just like, what the fuck just happened? Kind of like going over everything again. Like, why?
Day 0.
Why am I here? I was like, this is weird. So the girl came over, and I guess I was acting weird. She's like, you okay? And I was like, no. I was like, no, I just tried to kill myself and didn't work. So I decided to get a burger. And she's like, what? I'm like, yeah. So she sat down next to me, and I kind of told her my story. And she told me about a time where like she was at that point, but she decided to find something greater. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I didn't find something great. I was like, but after that gun didn't go off, I decided that I'm going to change. And I was like, you're the first person I've talked to in a week. And I was like, thank you for being so nice to me. And I remember how she made me feel just by sitting and listening, and I never really felt that before. And I was just like, okay. I didn't decide right then that that's who I wanted to be, but it eventually led to that's who I want to be. I want to be the person that people feel comfortable sharing. I want to be the person that people can open up to and they can rely on to just be there for them, And I remember driving back, and on my way back, I called my wife. I'm like, look, we're done. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I was like, I'm done. I was like, I need to move on. I was like, you hate me. I hate you. Like, we both cheated on each other. This is just not healthy. She's like, what about the kids? I was like, the kids will be fine. I was like, I'm done. So my next call is my jiu-jitsu coach. And
is that the same gym?
Yeah, Mark, yeah. And I called him. He was getting ready to go to Brazil to get his black belt. And I was like, hey, can I go to Brazil with you? I was like, I need something drastic to change. I was like, fuck it, let's go to Brazil. And so I ended up buying his ticket, bought my ticket. And I want to say about 3 weeks later, we were down in Brazil training jiu-jitsu. And never told anybody. at this point. I kept it to myself. I didn't tell a soul, except for that waitress at the sawmill. She's the only one that knew.
Do you think he suspected anything? Was he like looking at you a little sideways?
He knew something was wrong because like months leading up to that, I quit going to jiu-jitsu.
Right.
You know, I started giving shit away. It's typical suicidal tendencies. Stopped talking to people, pushing people away. I gave away one of my guns. I gave away just a lot of shit that I wanted. I just started getting rid of everything.
Walking towards the edge?
Yeah. You know, just kind of, I didn't know I wanted to kill myself until the day I decided, like, I'm going to go fucking do this. I'm going to do it in the Boundary Waters. But he was, I think he could tell, like, because I felt different afterwards. Like, I felt not happy, but, like, I started to feel happy, which was a rare feeling for me. The only time I ever felt, like, happy was at jiu-jitsu or at a tournament or just doing something, you know?
Rolling around with big, strong men.
Yeah, you know? Nothing gay about it, dude.
Yeah. You're missing the Air Force effect, yeah.
But we go to Brazil, and that's when I decided I want to fight MMA again. Because after my first fight in the military, my wife had told me she wanted me to quit. You know, and she says she saw a podcast where I said that. She's like, I didn't say that. I was like, you absolutely did, because I quit fighting because you didn't want me away from the house. So I said, fuck her. I was like, I'm going to start fighting again. And so that December, this was in September, I took a fight against Raul Rodriguez, and I just absolutely demolished this guy.
2010, 11?
No, this was 2015.
15, okay.
So I was like, okay, this is who I'm going to be. I'm going to be a fighter, right? I'm going to help other people live their lives by living my fucking life. Like, I'm going to try to be an example. I want to fight MMA, so I'm going to do it. Right? I want other people to see that you can chase your dreams. It doesn't matter if you have kids, like, you still got to chase your dreams.
So how many rounds was that fight?
So I ended up winning 1:13 in the first round.
Wow.
So I landed one punch. It was an uppercut. Just destroyed his head. It cut his head from like here to here. And the gash was so deep, like I could see his skull. Like in the back after the fight, they were stitching him up. He's like, hey, Nick, come look at this. And so I shook his hand. I was like, hey, man, I'm sorry. Because I broke it. What I ended up doing was I did what's called my coach calls it the Rahn bar now. It's an arm bar variation that my coach named after me. But you roll over and you grab the shoulder, and as you roll, if he doesn't roll with me, it'll dislocate your shoulder. So it dislocated his shoulder, and then he flipped, and then I broke his elbow. So I tore his labrum and his rotator cuff, and then I severed his tendon in his elbow, and I gave him a nice little scar on his head, all in 1:13 seconds. So I was like, okay, this is it. You know, and then
what belt, level belt, or
I was still I was a blue belt at the time, and I want to say 2 months later, and I'm breaking my neck. I was in a head and arm choke, and I jumped and spun out of it, but my vertebrae, it was my C5 and 6 got twisted, and the disc popped out and pinched off my nerve, and I ended up losing a bunch of mass on my arm, and it was fucked up. But about a month after I broke my neck, I thought I was just sore. I was like, I didn't think it was broken. I didn't know. So I ended up doing a jiu-jitsu tournament. I won first place.
Drink water.
But
Tylenol.
There was a move. It's called a paper cutter. You got to pull the back of the collar, and I couldn't pull. I had no strength in this arm. And so after that match, my coach gives me a 10-pound dumbbell. He's like, curl this. And I'm like, what the hell? And I'm like trying so hard, but I could not do it because my nerve was pinched. Yeah. So a couple weeks after that, I go get surgery. My neck was broken. And they told me it was an 18-month recovery and I would never fight again. I'm like, fuck you. I was like, watch me. I was like, I'm gonna fight again this year. They're like, no, you're not. I was like, watch me. So the day before my surgery, I went to Barnes & Noble, and for some reason I was walking around, and I'm not a religious person, right? I don't believe in God, but what I tell people is my lack of belief does not negate yours. I see no problem with you. I don't have any problem with anyone who follows any religion. Just give me that same respect. Yeah. You know, because I don't hate on others. But I saw this book called Buddhism Plain and Simple. I was like, what is Buddhism? Like, I knew what it was, but I was like, I wanted to learn about it. And so I buy that book, I go get my surgery, and I was pretty much in bed for a week. And so I started reading this book, and I just found a lot of peace in it. And I watched a bunch of movies. There's a movie that I tell people all the time that kind of ignited my need to travel. It's called Hector in the Search of Happiness. And it's Simon Pegg. He's a psychiatrist. Mm-hmm. And he starts to feel like he doesn't know what happiness is. And he feels like he can't help his patients. So he goes on this trip. He goes to Japan, he goes to Africa, he goes to LA, a bunch of different things. without giving everything away, he starts interviewing people and asking them, like, what is happiness to you? And it was just so moving to me, because like he was just curious and asking questions to try to find something in himself. And I'm like, I want to do that. I don't know how, but I want to do that.
How do you define happiness?
Yeah. I was like, I wanted to be happy.
How do you define happiness?
How do I define happiness? Bringing joy to other people. That's it, dude. Like, if there's a book called The Book of Joy. It was written by Archbishop Tutu and the Dalai Lama. And there's a quote in that book that says, if you want to experience joy, help others experience joy. You know, joy and happiness, same thing, you know, for the most part.
We could spend a couple hours talking about that.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
You can define it however you want, but they're very similar paths, right? And so as I was reading that book, I was just like, okay, right, I need to fix this. And so I started watching videos and I learned about epigenetics, right? Epigenetics is essentially, they call it the biology of belief. And I started reading it as I was reading this book on Buddhism. I started reading a couple other books. I'm like, epigenetics is literally the science behind Buddhism. I was like, it is the same fucking thing, right? It's like causing yourself to become happy, right? Being mindful, you know, the opposite of a hypochondriac, right? They think themselves sick. Why can't you think yourself healed? Mm-hmm. So I started focusing on that. And through reading this book, I found meditation. So I started meditating and I started focusing on my spine. I started thinking about it being healed and it's healthy. We're good. And a month and a half after my surgery, I went in for my first checkup, and I had pulled my staples out of my neck with the pliers because they were rubbing against my spine and I could feel it and hurt. So I just ripped them out with a pliers. And so I go in, the nurse is like, what happened to your staples? Like, oh, I pulled them out. So I was like, how did you pull them out? I was like, with the pliers. She's like, oh my God. So they do my MRI and everything. The neurologist comes in, or neurosurgeon comes in. He's like, what did you do? And I'm like, oh no. He's like, your neck is healed. And I'm like, seriously? He's like, you're better than you were before. And they had some weights there. Mm-hmm. And he gave me a 20-pound dumbbell. He's like, I don't want you curling more than 20. And I grabbed it and I'm just like, yeah, there's no problem. No strain, nothing. The next week I was doing 35s, up to 40s. I was benching again. And after that appointment, I'm like, am I cleared to fight? He's like, I don't want to say yes, but there's nothing that tells me no. And so I signed up for another fight. 4 months after I broke my neck, I fought at the Caboose. I fought Yamasadazai, who's now one of my good friends. And we won fight of the night. We beat the shit out of each other that night.
2016 now?
2016, yeah. So in the third round, we're sitting at our corners, right? We get up, we go out, and the crowd's screaming, Yama, Yama. And the other half, my nickname for MMA was Princess. So long story behind that.
Wow, awesome. Okay.
So you got half the crowd cheering Yama, the other half is cheering Princess. Yeah. Dude, it was like
call sign Princess.
The best energy I've ever felt in my life. I'm like, this is amazing, dude. So we get out there, we high five. I was like, hey, let's knock each other out. He's like, what the fuck? He's like, this guy's nuts, right? And so right as he comes at the first exchange, he comes at me and I throw a left hook and I drop him. And right as he drops, I jump on his back, throw in a rear naked choke, and I get my hooks in around his body, put it in a body triangle, and I'm just fucking squeezing, and I can hear everybody screaming at the top of their lungs. They're just like, yes! And I can hear my dad, because my dad's loud as shit. And so I just squeeze, and I remember thinking, please tap, please tap, please tap. And then he taps, dude, and I jumped the fucking cage right in front of my coach. Mm-hmm. I had 50 people there wearing my shirt, fucking screaming. I could see people crying. Mm-hmm. My coach was crying, and I was just like, fuck. It was the best feeling in the world, dude. I felt like fucking Superman that night. And it was mainly because they told me I'd never fight again. I said, fuck you, watch me. You know, I'm big on, like, if someone tells me I can't do something, watch me. Right. And so, like, in my motivational speaking, I have a thing called the impossible goal. Right. The impossible goal is something that you tell somebody and they say, that's impossible. But you have that burning desire inside, say, I'm going to make this happen. This is going to happen. That's why when you see me do shit or say I'm going to do something, it's because of this. Mm-hmm. My heart is on fire for what I want to do, and I'm going to do it. Right? So don't tell me I can't. Right? I'm going to do it twice, and I'm going to take pictures. And I'm going to send it to you. Right? And I've done that multiple times.
So I saw in your profile, you posted about Jason David Frank, the Green Ranger, mm-hmm. and he was a big deal to me growing up.
Yeah.
I still remember getting the news when he committed suicide, and it dropped me. Like
it fucking oddly damaged me, dude.
I had a dream, and this was like one whole night
where I felt like I had this green cube on my chest, like this weight. It was just on my weight. It felt as real as a dream could be without being a vision.
Mm-hmm.
And it was directly after hearing about his suicide, because he was such a positive figure.
Yeah.
And, you know, he had the Jesus Didn't Tap MMA brand, and it was, it's kind of like probably when Robin Williams committed, like, what,
Yeah.
like so many people look up to this person, then that was
Dude,
hard.
he's the reason why I started karate when I was a kid. I did it for like a year. I think it was like a purple belt or something. Like, I started because of him. Like, I was the Green Ranger. I tell everybody, I'm the Green Ranger. Like, when we play Power Rangers, I'm the Green Ranger.
Okay.
You don't have a choice.
I
Like,
know what to
that's
get
me
you for all Christmases now.
I'll fucking
Green
wear a Green
Ranger
Ranger
merch,
shirt.
right?
Shit.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Green Ranger sweatshirt I really want that I don't know why I've never bought it. I love that shirt though.
I'll be the Red Ranger.
But yeah, it's weird, dude.
Jason
like,
was my thing.
it oddly affected me when he committed suicide too.
Yeah.
You know, I was so sad because like he was such an inspiration to me as a kid. You know, and like I still loved him when I was fighting MMA and shit. You know, like I also love Ninja Turtles. Like, I got Mikey, you know, because I am Mikey. Because he's goofy as shit.
Mm-hmm.
He loves pizza and he loves kicking the shit out of people. So I got a giant Mikey tattoo on my calf.
So does that make
I love
me
it.
Raph?
Yeah, you're kind of a dick. So
Okay, yeah.
I'm just
I
kidding.
identify more with Raph than all the other.
But yeah, so like I decided I was going to be an MMA fighter. Like, my goal was to keep going. So after that fight, I ended up getting a title shot for the welterweight championship. And at this time I was the number 10 rated welterweight in Minnesota.
What's the organization or the?
It's just overall fighters in Minnesota, right? So I was fighting for Driller, which is now, I don't remember what they're called now. But I was going for the Driller championship. I fought a guy named Cam Gilliam. He was the number 1 welterweight in the country at the time for amateurs. And everyone told me, don't fight this guy. Don't fight this guy. Don't fight. I was like, yeah, but what if I win? And everyone was like, yeah, don't. I was like, but what if I win?
So what was
no
that?
one wanted to have that conversation with me. What if I win?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that fight was rough because it's actually, I shit my pants in the fight. So I had a really bad weight cut. And during that time, I was not doing well financially. You know, working at the patrol was doing okay, but it's just bills were stacking up, and I was donating plasma while training for an MMA fight.
Oh, yeah.
Not smart, dude. So my weight cut was really bad. Ended up cutting 30 pounds for that fight. I was 190 and I cut down to, or no, I was 200 pounds. I cut down to 170 for that fight. And I just felt like shit the day of the fight. And so first round, he fucking spears me and his shoulder goes right in my stomach and I shit my pants, right? I had spandex on.
Oh, man.
So at least my spandex kept it in. Luckily, it was hard. It wasn't liquid. So I just squeezed my butt cheeks to make sure it didn't fall out. And I was just like, oh my God. So at the end of the second round, or at the end of the first round, I sit down on my bench. And I tell my cousin, like, Mark, I shit my pants. He's like, no, you're doing fine. I was like, no, I have shit in my pants right now. And he's like, oh, I was like, what do I do? He's like, don't mount him. Like, so the second round starts.
No, mount him.
I can't throw kicks because I'm scared a turd's going to fall out. And so I had to change my whole game. And I throw kicks and punches, right? So he hits me again, takes me down. And it's like probably a minute and a half, 2 minutes into the round. And he gets me on side control. And I don't like side control. So I literally just put my legs down to let him mount me. And I swept him right away. And right as I swept him, I fucked up because like I was thinking about my shit. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get shit all over him. And I left my arm up and he choked me out. So after I lost that fight, I sprinted to the hotel room and I took my shorts off, took my spandex off, and I went to sit down on the toilet. But I didn't put the toilet seat up, so the toilet seat was still down. So I sit down and I'm just doing shit, and I go to stand up, and the seat lifts up with me because there was so much shit on the thing, right? So I jump in the shower, I clean up, and I had white shorts on too, right? So like when I looked at it, there's a little tiny streak. It wasn't a lot. So
Is there video from this fight?
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Okay, all right.
But you can't see it. Nobody would ever known about this if I didn't say anything. But I thought it was so funny.
Man.
I cannot not talk about it.
Well, I'm pretty sure he probably. What is this? Did I step in something on the mat? Like,
that was a
what's going
rough
on?
moment. But after that, like I was just
Kinda
like,
smelled
I'm
like
not.
shit, right?
I started training at the gym that Cam trained at. I wanted to go train with him because I didn't have a striking coach, and I went 3-0 without a striking coach, which is pretty good.
Right.
So I was 3-1, and I wanted to go learn Muay Thai. So I went over to Spartan and ended up doing 2 Muay Thai fights. My first one, it was like like 130 punches or 130 strikes to like 36. I absolutely demolished this guy.
Wow.
And he never fought again after that too, I guess. We were friends on Facebook and he decided to quit completely. And that was his first fight. So I'm like, I kind of felt bad. But I did that, and then in June I ended up doing
you feel proud, you're like, yep.
I don't know, I just felt bad. I don't like hurting people, dude. Like, even when I hurt Raul, when I jacked his shit up, I'm like, dude, I'm so sorry. Like, we got hammered on tequila that night because I felt so bad.
Well, if someone quits a path after their first defeat, that path was never meant for them in the first place.
I know, but the way I work is like, I don't like to hurt people. You know, like, fighting is a sport to me, right? It's a sport to see who can win. And I wanted to be a jiu-jitsu fighter. I wanted to be the guy that takes everybody out without hurting them. I didn't want to hurt them. Yeah, I threw punches and shit like that, but my goal wasn't necessarily to hurt people. And I just don't like when other people are hurt, right? So like, I always felt bad after every fight. Always. Even the one that I lost, I felt bad. But then I ended up fighting at the Thai Boxing Association. It's one of the biggest amateur Muay Thai tournaments in the world.
So what's the leading motivator
Glory.
to get into the ring?
Glory.
It must be greater than you not liking the person getting hurt, because that's...
Oh, yeah, of course.
That's the
my will to win was bigger than hurting people. I just felt bad afterwards. You know, like, even when I was bouncing and hurting people, I always felt bad on the drive home. Always. But then I do it again.
Did that tell you that you still had your humanity, that existed?
I think so.
You still cared about your fellow man?
Yeah, I still did, man. Even when I was in a rampage, you know, in 2012, 2013, bouncing, like, I still didn't want people to be hurt, right? But at the time, they were the bad guy, they were the villain, and I'm going to kill you, right? So I paint them to be the villain, right? In MMA
fights, you were the princess, they were the king. You're going to dethrone the king. All right.
Well, even in MMA fights, I had no animosity, no hatred. Like, I never went out to a fight like, this guy's my enemy. It was never like that. It was like, I'm going to beat this guy. I'm going to beat this guy at his own game. And I got knocked out at that fight in the TBAs, and a week later I hurt my neck again. We were doing Muay Thai whips, and my neck, the disc popped out again. So I quit MMA. I was like, I'm done. So for about 6 months, I just focused on lifting weights, and I'd never really lifted weights before. And so I went from 170 to like 215. Yeah. Right. So well, that was after the fight. So like, I still was gaining weight again. All right. So I gained my normal weight back to 190, and then I got up to about 210, 215 or something like that. And that was pretty big. And then I took another fight, decided to fight at 170 again. So I had to lose 40 fucking pounds for this fight, right? But I had 3 months. So I dieted down, because I'm a diet cutter. I don't like to cut in the sauna too much. 10, 15 pounds is my max the day before the fight. And so I ended up doing that fight, and I ended up beating this kid, I don't remember his name, but I beat him in 1 minute, 10 seconds with the exact same armbar that I beat Raul Rodriguez with. And he was a black belt in Taekwondo, so I was like, I'm taking him down, right? I'm not going to let him hit me. And so I beat him without hurting him at all, right? I tore some tendons in his elbow because he didn't tap fast enough. That's his fault, not mine.
That hurts?
So the next fight I ended up taking, and it was a tournament, I was supposed to fight June 30th, but I got a call from LFA, which is like the breeding ground for the UFC. So I can't say no to a fight for them. So I fought a guy named Joey Hart. And Joey, at the time, like, I didn't think his skills were amazing. Like, he was a good striker, but his ground game sucked. I was like, okay, I'm just going to take the fucker down, and I'm going to maul him on the ground. But his coach was Brock Larson. And Brock Larson is one of the best MMA coaches in Minnesota. He studied my tapes, and he knew if this guy went to the ground with me, I was going to win. So they practiced takedown defense for 3 months straight. Okay. So I just couldn't get inside on him, man. So like, every time I went to get close, I get popped, and I'm like, fuck. So I took him down in the first round, and it was right at the end. He ended up getting up. Second round, I took him down again, and I'm like, all right, cool. And it just wasn't working, right? So he ended up getting up again. So I was focusing on taking out his calves. I was just calf kicking him left and right. And so I go to throw a calf kick, but I threw it too high, and he's turned his kneecap right into it. So my top of my feet hit his kneecap, and I shattered 4 bones in my foot. So I took a step back, and I winced, and I was in so much pain, dude. And I stepped back, and he came up with an uppercut, knocked me the fuck out. So I woke up still getting hit, and I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? And then the ref comes over and tackles me and my buddy Travis Meter. And I look at him, I was like, why are you hitting me? He's like, I think you got knocked out, buddy. I'm like, oh, shit. So after that, rewind a little bit to 2015 in Brazil. Ended up meeting a girl. January, she came back to visit, 2016. We ended up getting married so she could stay. And so I thought we were madly in love. And then she got her green card after the fight in June 1st, 2018 was that fight where I got knocked out. I decided I was going to quit because about 2 weeks after I started getting terrible migraines. My vision was blurry, typical concussion stuff. Yeah. So I was like, this isn't healthy for me. So I decided to quit MMA completely. So I quit jiu-jitsu, quit MMA. I'm done with everything. And I got really depressed, dude. And then about a month after that, she got her green card and left 4 days later. And yeah, so I discovered some text messages from a friend, come to find out that was her whole plan all along, right? That broke my heart, dude. So I was like, I'm going to give myself...
Useful. I mean, you helped somebody. You know?
I decided to give myself...
No different than helping someone build a house.
Yeah. I decided to give myself a week to just be sad. Yeah. I was like, I get a week to be depressed, to be sad, and just fucking hate myself. So I did. I got fucking hammered every week or every night. I just did everything I used to do. My drinking had slowed down in 2014 because I wanted to get better at jiu-jitsu. And it got to a point where it was under control, right? I would still go out and get hammered sometimes, but it wasn't a necessity for me anymore. And so I started drinking again in 2018 pretty heavily. I wouldn't say alcoholic status, but it was pretty bad. So I decided, I watched that movie again, Hector and the Search for Happiness. And then also The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. I watched them both within a day or two during that week where I was going to just hate myself. And I was like, okay, I need to go do something. And so I took a week off in August and I put a post on Facebook, said, hey, I got a week off during this week. What am I doing? Everyone's like, go to Sturgis, because the Sturgis rally was going on. So I get there and I just didn't have a plan. There was no hotels, so I just slept in my car. So the first night we get there, I'm drinking at a bar. And this guy comes over and sits next to me, and the bartender spills my drink, and it spills on this guy. And he's wearing a vest, and I'm like, shit, I'm about to get my ass kicked. So, hey, man, I'm sorry. I was like, I didn't mean to, let me buy you a drink. He's like, yeah, it's not a problem. I'm like, all right, cool. And he had a ring on that said vet. And I'm like, are you a veteran? He's like, yeah, I was in the Air Force. It's like, no shit, me too. So we start chatting it up. He's like, my buddy's over here. I'm getting some shots for him. You want to come? I was like, as long as you buy me a shot, let's go. He gets up and turns around, Hell's Angels. I was like, fuck. And I work for the police. They don't like cops, right? So I'm like, okay.
Well, you're a dispatcher.
But it's still
not
cops.
a cop.
It's still law enforcement, right?
Sure.
So
okay.
I'm like, okay, I'm not going to talk about that. So we go hang out, and like Army, Air Force, Marines, Air Force, Navy, like they're all military. I'm like, okay, so we just start getting hammered. And one of them told me the next day that I said I could drink them under their table, and found out that I did. But I woke up in my car, and there was a wad of $1 bills next to me, and I'm like, what the fuck? So I open my phone up, and I get a bunch of texts like, hey, where'd you go? Like, dude, you're crazy. That was hilarious. And I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? And then one of them texted me and said, hey, meet us at One Eye Jack's for lunch. I'm like, all right. So I get there, and I walk in, this group of like 9 Hells Angels guys go, hey! I'm like, God, what did I do last night, dude? So I get over there, and they're just like, yo, last night was wild. I was like, I don't remember anything. I was like, I remember sitting down with you guys. That's it. And then one of the guys goes, hey, check this out. He pulls out a video. I'm like, oh no. And we're at a strip club. And I'm standing next to the stage. And I was like, I could do better than you. And she's like, no, you can't. I was like, watch me. I jump on stage, shirt comes off, pants come off, take my shoes, my socks off, just my boxers. And I'm dancing on the pole. Pretty damn good, mind you. Mm-hmm. I was very shocked. So I start dancing. People are putting dollar bills in my fucking waistband. The bikers are putting dollar bills. Strippers are putting dollar bills. I was like, what the fuck? And so I was like, well, it explains this. And I pull out a wad of cash, and they all start laughing. It's like, well, I guess lunch is on me. But then we start talking. And at this point, I was kind of on a vision quest. Like, who the fuck am I? Who am I going to be? Because like I thought I was going to be an MMA fighter. This is my life. And it's gone. So I felt lost again. I was right back where I started, and I was just like, I don't know who I am anymore. Like, I don't know what to be like. And so I asked them, like, why did you guys join the Hells Angels? And they're like, man, get out of the military. You just feel so alone. Like, you just don't have people anymore. And he's like, we found the brotherhood again with these guys, and like their stories were so amazing because it was all about brotherhood and camaraderie, like they just missed it. And so I told them my story about my suicide attempt and how I was lost and how I just got knocked out and like trying to discover myself again. And then these guys start talking about, I tried to kill myself, I tried to kill myself. I tried to OD. Like, I was just like, wow, like the vulnerability of my story helped these badass motherfuckers open up. And some of them were crying too. And I'm just like, these bad motherfuckers don't do that. I'm like, that felt really good. So I'm like, okay, vulnerability is an amazing tool. And so vulnerability kind of became that's what I'm going to do. And then I ended up going to Florida a couple months later. And then when I got divorced, I had a credit card with like 65,000 miles on it. So I bought myself a free divorce trip to Hawaii. So got a plane ticket and a car rental for free because of my miles.
Wow.
Right. So I'm like, cool. So I brought a tent and I rented a Subaru and I just camped around the island. I slept in the mountains one night. I slept on the beach a bunch of nights. And like, even though I was by myself, I still craved conversation. Right. And every day I would just find somebody and we would sit and talk. Every one of them happened to be a veteran or active duty. And we talk about mental health, tell them my story. They would tell me their story. And then every one of them would open up about some shit that I know they hadn't talked about in a long time. And I'm just like, I think I got something here, right? And at this time, since 2016, I started writing my 6 principles, right? Mm-hmm. I had realized after my suicide attempt that the person who could have saved me they don't exist. So I was going to create that person for myself, not for other people. It was for me, right? And I wanted to develop who that person's going to be, and I want to help that guy sitting on that rock getting ready to kill himself. How can I get him to not pull that trigger, right? And that was kind of my goal, is to become that person, that version who could have saved me. And I'd come up with the 6 principle process. Late 2018 is when I solidified it. I had a buddy of mine who was a veteran and he was struggling, and I took him on a hike and I gave him my 6 principles. Kind of did like an impromptu kind of speech hike kind of thing. And over a few months, this guy turned his fucking life around just by these principles. And he texts me every week, dude, I'm using the principles, thank you. And that felt so good to know that I gave somebody else a tool that's helping them in life. And so my last day in Hawaii, back to 2019, my friend Alex and Ryan, they sold all their shit a couple years before this, and they just travel around the world. And they're online journalists, and they do everything online. Is how they make their money. And they just so happened to be in Waikiki that night. I'm like, all right. So we ended up hanging out, and I told them my story over the span of a couple hours. And Alex, his wife, was just kind of sitting there. I'd never met her, so I couldn't read her very well. And she's just staring at me, kind of like you are now, just like,
well, I'm listening. I'm
what the fuck, dude? She's like, you need to write a blog. You need to write a book. You need to tell people about this. This is amazing. And so she showed me her website. She used Weebly. So I'm like, okay, interesting. So the day I got back, I started doing research on blogs, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm going to start a travel blog, and I want to inspire veterans to travel. That's what Warrior's Next Adventure initially was supposed to be. And, eventually it turned into what it is today, And
what is it today?
So initially it started off with just, I was going to travel and I was going to try to inspire others. About a month after I made my website, I invited a bunch of my dispatchers to come hiking with me, all Marines, Army, all military. And one of my troopers came with too. Her husband was a Marine. She wasn't military. And so we did this hike, and I told them my story. And this was the first time I had publicly talked about me trying to kill myself. Yes. Probably March, April. And they were so mad at me, because I was friends with these guys. And they're like, dude,
I was wondering, I was
trying to kill yourself?
I was going to wonder if that...
They were so mad.
Details going to come in.
Right. But as we went on, they all start talking about their depression and their anxiety and the things they struggle with. And I'm like, this fucking works, dude. Right. Using my vulnerability of my story to get them in a position where they're comfortable to talk. Mm-hmm. Right. Because this guy has done some shit. Right. He's been through some shit, and he's at a point where he's starting to become happy. And so I essentially use the nonprofit. The nonprofit is very selfish. Right. I know the word you can play semantics on the word all you want. That's fine, right? But I do it for me, right? I do it because every time I answer a crisis call and I stop a veteran from committing suicide, that's me saving that guy in 2015 all over again, right? So I created this for myself, and I realized that I can help more people with this, right? I can be that guy, not only for myself, for others. And after that hike, I decided we're going to do mountain climbing, right? So we went to New York first to do Mount Marcy. And
why New York?
I had a veteran who was struggling over there, had reached out to me, and I could tell could really use something. And I decided we're going to do our first hike in New York so he can go. I'm doing this for him. And it was amazing because it helped him change, and he ended up joining my organization and, helped me out with a lot of stuff. And eventually we got dirt track race cars. Late 2019, I started the crisis line because I was a 911 dispatcher. Like this is my specialty, right? I was the suicide guy at the State Patrol, and I had stopped like 7 or 8 suicides. So I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing here, right? And so the day I started that crisis line, I got a call that night. And I remember talking to that guy for about 3 hours. And I told him, I was like, look, I'm going to call you tomorrow. You know, I want to keep talking. And I talked to that guy, God, for like 6 months, at least once a week minimum. And I helped that guy get to a different point, right? Now, same thing I tell every veteran that calls me, right? When you call my crisis line, who's the one making the connection? It's them, right? So like I get a lot of calls shortly after a suicide attempt when I stop it. You know, they say like, you saved my life. But I was like, okay, let me ask you a question. Who's the one who called me? Like, well, I did. It's like, okay, who's the one that applied the lessons that I taught you to your life? He's like, well, I did. I was like, so who's the one who saved you? He's like, well, I did. Because the empowerment of understanding that I am in charge of my life. I am in charge of the destination. I am in charge of the way that I react to things. I am in charge of the person who walks this earth. It's me. I am in charge. I need to be the one that makes the decisions, right? So you are where you are in life because of your decision. And I full-heartedly agree with that. And I will die on that fucking hill, right? You are where you are because of your decisions, right? Because we can't always control what happens to us. Obviously, sexual assault, you can't, that's not your fault, right? But the way you react to it, that's on you.
That's your responsibility.
It's your responsibility every time, right? So with a tragedy, when a tragedy happens, you can let it destroy you or you can let it make you stronger. Use that tragedy for something positive. I discovered that in 2019, right? I used my suicide attempt, that tragedy, as something positive. How can I turn this terrible thing that happened into something inspirational for other people? All right, and that's what Warriors Next Venture is based off of, right? And then eventually we started doing Colorado, which the mountain climb became Colorado. We started doing the retreats out there. So we take 15 veterans to Colorado on a 6-day mental wellness retreat. I put them through the 6 principle process and we climb a 14,000-foot mountain. We've taken a little over 85 veterans climbing mountains now, and every one of them will tell you it was a life-changing experience. I know because they've told me, and they tell everybody else. We have a jiu-jitsu program.
Don't try to go from 500 feet elevation to a 14 in less than 24 hours. That's never a good idea.
So, it just kept expanding, and, for the longest time, I was still working with the State Patrol, and there was something missing. Like I enjoyed helping people at the nonprofit. That was my love, my passion. I loved everything about it. But I was just like, I'm not satisfied, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And in 2021, I created a thing called PTSD versus Jiu-Jitsu Tour. So we drove around the country training Jiu-Jitsu with veterans who use Jiu-Jitsu to overcome their PTSD. Our intention was to make a documentary about it, but the footage, not documentary worthy, right? Long story with that, we'll kind of just skip that.
Okay.
But the State Patrol told me I couldn't go because I was going to take a 45-day non-paid leave. And the whole George Floyd thing was happening that time, and Chauvin's trial was in April, and they stopped all leave because it was so chaotic, right? And I just said, okay, well, if you're not going to let me go, then, what are we going to do here?
Peace.
So they essentially told me, no, you will not go on this leave. And I responded with my resignation.
You can't tell me what I can't do.
I was like, yeah. I was like, this is something, I love this, right? I'm going to jump, right? I tell veterans all the time, like, if you're looking to make a major change in your life, but you're scared, sometimes you just got to jump into the fog because you don't know what's there.
So there's a little bit of irony in the words you used, how you talked basically people off the edge, and then you just told the Highway Patrol, I'm going to jump.
Yeah, you have to. Sometimes you have to take the risk.
Like it's just,
if you don't know what's there, you're never going to know what's there unless you pursue it. Right? What if I fail? Okay, I'll find something else out, right? I remember calling my dad, telling him that I resigned. He's like, what are you going to do for money? I was like, I'll figure it out. I don't know. Right? And I had just gotten 80% to the VA because I had taken a lot of time to go to the VA after the military.
Yeah, the VA here's pretty good.
Yeah. And I had just gotten 80%. I had a $10,000 paycheck. I'm like, all right, well, I'm good for 2 months at least, So I'm like, we're good. So I do my tour. It was amazing. Met some amazing people. Got back and I ended up taking out my 401k from the State Patrol and bought like $10,000 worth of tools. I said, I'll just be a carpenter. So I got hired at a carpenter's agency.
$10,000 worth of tools?
That Milwaukee shit's not expensive. It's not cheap, dude.
Wow.
I bought a lot of shit, dude. But I ended up getting a job with Jermu Painting. Those guys were awesome. Loved the guys, learned a lot from them. And so this is October 2021, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer. I was taking a shower and I bumped it and it hurt really bad. And I started looking online for signs of testicular cancer. As I was showering, I bumped my sack.
Okay.
And it hurt really bad.
It. All right, get it.
And so I started looking at it, and I had 6 out of the 7 signs of testicular cancer. Because I started looking at my fatigue. My fatigue levels were terrible. Mm-hmm. My work ethic was kind of it's not me, right? And it had been going on for a couple months. I didn't know what was going on with me. And I was like, oh, this makes sense, right? So I go to the VA like a week later, 3 days later, I'm in surgery. Cut it out, right?
3 days later, that fast?
Yeah. I got pretty lucky because it was stage 1, right? So I didn't have to do radiation. They told me pretty much bed rest for a week, right? And I think 3 days later, I was driving a race car in a race. Because I was like, well, we got a race on Friday. Come on. It's just a little scar, no big deal.
You turned into Breaking Bad. You just did all the
it was whatever. So like the race went fine, right? There was no issues, but there's the pit is back here, right? And then where my girlfriend was sitting, there was a fence I had to jump over. So when I jumped over the fence, I tore my abdomen, because what they do is they cut you here, and I tore my abdomen up to my belly button, and like I can still feel the scar all the way down. So after that, I went back to the VA. They're like, what'd you do? I was like, I jumped over a fence. They're like, you're supposed to be bed rest. So for a week after that, I stayed in bed, right? And I noticed like, as the weeks went on, I just felt, I still was dealing with depression at the time. Like even with the nonprofit was bringing me a lot of happiness, right? Mm-hmm. But I still had some inner demons that I needed to figure out. I needed to work through some things. And I just started to feel shitty, man. Like I had no energy. And I want to say about 2 months afterwards, I ended up getting my testosterone checked. Before this, I got my testosterone checked multiple times, and my testosterone was always right around 800, which is pretty good for a male in their 30s, right? And it was sitting right at about 500. For me, that's not good, right? That's half the reason why I feel like shit. And so I ended up supplementing with TRT, and I want to say the first 2 weeks, I felt great. I was like, I felt energy again. I ended up getting fat during this time, right? I was up to 215, 220.
Okay, we're in what, 2021?
2022, in the early part of 2022. I was about 220, and I was chubby, dude. I had a gut, like I looked like shit. I hated myself. So I started working out every day. I was like, I'm gonna lift weights every day, which very quickly went to 4 days a week because that's too much.
Did you go back to the gym with tracks?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was late 2019 when I started the nonprofit. I realized jiu-jitsu was such an amazing part of my life. I need to bring jiu-jitsu back into it. So I ended up going back and training with Mark, and I've been there since 2019 again.
So when did the comedy show up?
That's after the whole Ocean Row thing. So.
Oh, got it. Yeah, when was that?
So I started lifting weights and got up to, I ended up losing like 20 pounds. I dropped down to like 195. And then after about 6 months, I was up to 215. And I had like 9% body fat. So I'm like, okay, this whole testicular cancer thing isn't such a bad thing if I get to take TRT, right? So I was still training jiu-jitsu and, competing, and life was going well, man. And I want to say mid 2021, I did a podcast, right? So I have Warriors Next Venture podcast. I was doing a podcast with the founder of Fight or Die. So Fight or Die is an organization where they do an ocean crossing in a race called the World's Toughest Row. It used to be called the Talisker Whiskey Atlantic Challenge. It's now the World's Toughest Row. So you row a boat unmanned. It's just completely manned. It's no support, nothing. There's a sailboat that goes back and forth just to check on you, but you can't get any assistance. So it's all row power. And you race from the Canary Islands to the Caribbean. It's a 3,000-mile row. And so as I'm interviewing him on this podcast, I'm like, you're insane. Why would anyone do this? I was like, this is wild. Why would anyone want to do this? And 3 of my ambassadors were watching. And all 3 of them, within a span of like a day, reached out to me like, dude, we got to do that. I'm like, no. And I said no 100 times. Like, no, I'm not doing that. No. This is stupid. Why would you do that? Go in the middle of the ocean. I joined the Air Force, not the Navy, right? Because I don't like the ocean. Right. And so eventually they talked me into it. So we were already.
So then I went. Yeah.
We were already in the training process for this, right? And then I found out I had cancer, right? So we're thinking, oh no, Nick's not gonna be able to do this, right? And after
the balls.
Ball. But after my surgery, they had to do a CT scan and they found a lump in my lungs. And so the lump was about 3 millimeters, right? Which is not super scary.
Do you smoke?
But no, never smoked. So I kept going back and it just kept getting bigger. It got up to a centimeter. And so this was probably April, May timeframe. So I'm still working out. I'm trying to stay positive. I'm like, look, if I got cancer, I'm going to beat this too. And so they go in, they were going to do a biopsy, but they did one more scan. And when I did that scan, it was gone. So I think it was a fungus or something like that. So I go from thinking I have lung cancer to like, I'm fine. So I was super happy, right? And early 2022, I decided, okay, I need a job. So I started my carpentry company, Warriors Workshop. I also started Invoke Change Motivational Speaking because I wanted to start doing more motivational speaking. I'd already started 2019 doing speeches to like VFWs, stuff like that. But now like I give speeches to like, Comcast, I did 3M, the Air Force, like all different kinds of places. A bunch of Lions clubs have me in, VFWs, and it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy speaking, if you couldn't tell. It's a 3-hour podcast. So we're training for this row, and we were supposed to row in 2023, I believe. Okay. Or no, 2024. But the team for 2022 backed out. And then the team for 2023 decided they didn't want to do it anymore. It's like, all right, we'll do it in 2022, right? So our training got kicked up. So we did all this training, and we fly out to La Gomera in Spain, and we spend about 2 weeks out there prepping for the row. And
so what are you doing to train?
So to train, we brought the boat up to Lake Superior, and we were doing a bunch of training on Lake Superior. And then for about 2 weeks before we shipped the boat out, we went down to Mobile, Alabama.
No, I mean, you personally, like what's that? I mean,
I was doing a lot of rowing.
Abdomen. I mean, that's.
Well, by that time, my stomach had already healed. Okay. My stomach had healed by end of July or end of January.
Okay.
So I was doing a lot of rowing. I would row for about 2 hours.
And there was no pain with your neck or your shoulder?
Oh, there's tons of pain with my neck and my shoulder, yeah. I just push through it, yeah. But I do a lot of rowing, lifting weights constantly, and I wanted to pack on at least like 10 pounds of fat. So I was eating pizza, I was eating ice cream, like as much as I was eating like 4,000 to 5,000 calories a day for like the 3 months leading up to this, because I wanted as much fat as possible, because a lot of people most people on average lose 20 to 40 pounds on the row. So I'm like, okay, I want fat reserves.
So the previous event, did you do research on it, how long it takes?
Yeah.
So what was your expectations going in?
We were trying to do it in 42 days, which would have been one of the better records. Yeah. So which during the race,
why would you want to do this?
Yeah. We were on pace to make it in 42 days.
Okay.
So we were the first ones to leave, which was awesome. So we got to start the race. So we row out and we got hundreds of people screaming and yelling. It's live streamed on YouTube. And it was pretty cool. And the girl came up to me before we set off. She's like, is there anything you want to say to everybody? And I just said, just go do something amazing. And then we rode off. We took off. And I remember leaving the port, like we were just like, yeah. And then like 5 minutes later, we're just like, okay, well, this is boring.
Yeah, this is work. It's work. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty chill. So like we had 4 guys. So 2 guys row, 2 guys sleep. There was a front cabin and a back cabin. We had side ports on our deck for all of our food. We had a bunch of storage inside. We had a desalinator, which made our water for us. We had satellite radios or satellite phones. We had walkie-talkies. We had an actual radio system with solar panels and everything. So we're fully equipped to do this. This boat is made for this.
Okay, and you had to get a passport to do this?
I already had a passport.
Oh, you already had a passport. Okay.
But yeah, so we started on December 12th. 2022 is when we started.
And what was the location, the port that you left?
La Gomera.
La Gomera, okay.
Yeah, it's in the Canary Islands. Technically a part of Spain. It's off the coast of Africa.
Do you know the latitude, longitude?
Oh, not at all, no.
You didn't get it tattooed on you, or you?
The first couple of days were fine, and eating wasn't a problem, but I got really bad seasickness after about 3 days, and I couldn't eat, right? So what I got smart, though, is I brought a bunch of tortillas with me and peanut butter. So I was putting peanut butter on a tortilla because when I was poor, when I was a kid, tortillas and peanut butter was a great snack, you know?
That's still a great snack.
Not anymore. I can't even look at peanut butter anymore. I survived off peanut butter for 2 weeks, dude. I see peanut butter and I want to throw up. But it was beautiful, dude. Like, you know, at night when it took us about 3 days to get away from the island because we could still see it like 2-3 days in.
What's your distance that you can cover in a day?
Oh God.
What were you on pace for?
About 20 to 30 miles. 20 to 30 miles a day. But yeah, dude, like when we finally got away from the island, the first night that we couldn't see the island, it was a full moon, right? So it was beautiful, right? Mm-hmm. The next day, you know, the moon was kind of down and the solar system, oh my God, the stars. It was such a beautiful sight. It was one of the most beautiful things in the world to me. And, you know, I might not be a religious person, but I'm a very, very spiritual person. Mm-hmm. I'm very connected internally, right, to the inside. Like I believe that we are all connected, which is why the nonprofit is so personal to me, is because when those guys are struggling, that's me struggling, and I want to stop it. And helping them end their suffering feels like me ending my suffering. Because like being an empath really sucks sometimes, because if someone's sad and depressed, I become sad and depressed. I become what they are. And it's almost like a chameleon, right? I want to be exactly like them in that moment so I can be with them, right? Not observe them, but be there with them. All right, there's that story about jumping in the pit, right? There's a guy in a pit, you know, someone walks by and says, hey, do you need help? Like, yeah, okay, I'll go get help. Another guy walks by and says, hey, do you need help? He said, yeah, I can't get out. He drops down a ladder, walks away. Little does he knows the guy can't climb. Another guy walks by and sees us, hey, are you okay? He says, no, I need help. So he jumps inside with him. And he sits down. And he lights up a cigarette and he hands him one. And he goes, why'd you jump down here with me? He said, because I know how to get out. And so he sits there with him until he gets out. And then he sits there for a few more minutes afterwards. And then he climbs out himself, right? That's who I strive to be. I want to be that person that can jump in that pit with others because I know how to get out.
You did that with me. So you were at my house helping me move out my stuff, just me and my dog. And you helped me find a new place. The guy turned out to be a little crazy, but you did help me find a new place.
I'm sorry that didn't work out.
But you were the only one to even get me that far. Nobody, you saw that no one was calling me back, but you were there. Like you bought my foosball table for $50, whatever. You helped me take stuff to, like you were in the pit with me. You were right there, man.
Unfortunately, it's my comfort zone. I don't like seeing people struggle alone. Nobody should be alone. Mm-hmm. You know, everybody should have somebody. And for the ones who don't, I'm there, you know. But yeah, I mean, like on the ocean, you know, there's some days where, you know, I don't want to get too much into it, but there was a big divide between me and the other three guys. You know, they, again, on a boat in the middle of the ocean with three other guys, I felt completely alone. You know, and there was a lot of background with that, but I wanted it to be over, you know? I wanted to get there and finish so we could just be done. And I want to say I think we made it, it was December 28th. So was that 14 days? 16 days. So we made it 16 days. The day before the incident, a couple days before, there was a big storm that went through Buffalo. And it left like feet of snow on the ground. And that system came down and actually hit the ocean where we were. And so we were in 30, 40-foot swells for 2 days straight. Jeez, with like 50-mile-an-hour winds. So we're getting hit by 40-foot waves. So when you're at the top of a 40-foot wave, there's another 80 feet down. So you're looking down, and you're looking off of a cliff, dude. It's insane. So like you're sitting on that rowboat, you got your oars in the water, and you're leaning to keep the boat. The boat's like this, and you're leaning this way, like with the oar in the water, trying to keep you guys leveled out. And you look down, like you're sideways, and I'm looking down this 80-foot drop. And then it just comes back up. And every once in a while, a wave would cap on us and just obliterate us, right? There was a couple times where our boat almost capsized. And we, you know, luckily we didn't, but it was the most terrifying thing that I've ever experienced.
Did you give any warning when this thing came around?
No.
Did you have any radio update on weather?
Well, yeah, we had weather systems and we had weather apps and we had everything that we needed. Plus, every day we got a call from the race command, and they would kind of tell us what's going on. And so we kind of knew it was coming.
Happen?
Well, the day before the incident, we were kind of heading southwest. We were trying to use the wind and the waves to push us farther. So we're trying to get, make as much ground as we can using the waves. But we had gone so far south, if we went any farther south, we were going to miss the island. So if you get south of the island, the current doesn't go up. It's pushing down.
Okay.
So you have to slowly come down into the island. So what they recommend is we go straight west. The wind and the waves were coming straight south. So we're getting broadsided by waves and wind for 2 days. And so we had the, I don't remember what it's called, but you throw a rope in the water and you throw another one in the front. It's got a big parachute and it kind of keeps you aligned, right?
Oh.
So you don't wibble or wobble
like
too much.
stabilizer?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we were kind of just sitting there taking it. And I was sitting out on the deck just getting fucking blasted by these waves. And we're in full rain gear because it's, 2:30 in the morning and I'm just getting blasted left and right and I'm just miserable. Like, what am I doing?
You should have a wetsuit on.
Well, the suits that we had on, they're Helly Hansen, I think it is. I think it's Helly Hansen. Well, it's a cold weather, and it's not a cold weather. It's a full rain suit, right?
Okay.
So it'll keep you dry, right? And you're getting just drenched on the outside, and you're dry. So there's no issues, and there's hoods. But I go in after my shift. My shift ended at 3, and I went into my cabin, shut the door, locked it, and I just lay down. I pass out, right? It gets to the point where you don't even change anymore. You just stay in your wetsuit, you jump in, you just lay down and pass out. Right, so I was so hot though, because those cabins were so hot. So I stripped down to my boxers, and I actually this was actually the shirt that I was wearing that night. I just realized that right now. Wow. Weird. This is all I have left. And I was also wearing a bracelet that my girlfriend got me with the grid coordinates of where we met. So all I had was that bracelet from my girlfriend and this shirt. But anyway, so it was about 3:30 in the morning, and the boat's carbon fiber, so like just you could tap on the front, and it sounds like someone's hitting it with a hammer on the inside, right? So I heard the wave come. So the wave woke me up, and I was terrified because we were sideways going up the wave, and it capped on us right at the top. So we turned completely sideways, and then I heard the wind hit us, and it sounded like I thought we got hit by a ship because of the sound. I'm like, we're dead. But the second that sound happened, the boat hit me in the side of the face, and I got knocked out. So I woke up about 5 minutes later based off of their details. I was out for about 5 minutes. And I woke up, and I'm upside down, and everything's on top of me. And so I'm completely delirious. I don't know what's going on. I don't even know where I'm at. I got hit so hard. That was the worst concussion I've ever had. And so I'm just looking around, trying to figure out what the fuck is happening. And I look out the window, and I'm completely submerged underwater. And I'm freaking out. So I'm like, what the fuck is happening? I still don't know what's happening. So I reach around, and I hung my headlamp on a specific spot on a loop. So I knew it's there, and I reach for it, and it's not there. I'm like, oh, the boat's upside down. So I grab it, put it on my head, and I start looking around. I'm on my knees, and I'm already stomach deep in water. And that thing's filling up fast.
And you don't have your suit on?
No, I have nothing. All I have is my boxers, this shirt, and the bracelet from my girlfriend. That's it, and a headlamp. So I try to open the door, and the door wouldn't open because of the pressure.
And
so I started.
The lights are still working? You said, yeah.
I had my headlamp on,
okay.
And I couldn't see anything because it's pitch black. It's 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
So I started banging on the hull saying, hey, I need help. I'm going to drown. And Chad dives underneath. His head goes up into the footwells. So he could kind of get a little bit of air, but he's got nothing to hold on to. So he's holding on to the foot straps, trying to hold himself up. And he's like, on 3, I'm going to open the door. I'm like, okay, as soon as the door opens, dive under. So he dove underneath as soon as the door opened, and I just got hit with thousands of gallons of water, dude. So I'm waiting, it fills up all the way up to my neck. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I'm so scared, dude. I was like, I don't want to do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. And the water came up to my neck. I'm like, fuck, go. So I dive under, and I go straight up into the footwells thinking I could get some air. But I didn't think about the back fill up with so much water it sank. So I hit my head, and I sucked in a bunch of water, and I start panicking. And so I dive underneath. As soon as I come up out of the water, I grab the rope on the side of the boat. My head comes above the water. I puke, and we get blasted by another wave. I hit my head on the side of the boat, and I wake up underwater like this. I'm like, so I suck in a bunch more water, pull myself back up. Thankfully, I was still holding onto that rope. So I don't think I was out for more than a few seconds, but I pull back out and I look at Chad. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? He's like, we're sinking, dude. He's with the life raft. So I look at the life raft. They had accidentally cut the rope that connected it to the boat. So the life raft's starting to float away. That was our saving grace, dude. So I'm like, I'll get it. And he's like, dude, he's like, are you sure? I'm like, I got it. So the current in the Atlantic, the day before we dropped the water bottle, it was gone in 3 seconds. We couldn't see that motherfucker. It was gone, right? So the worry is the life raft's going to leave and we're fucked, right? I just start swimming. I didn't think about it until I got back. What if I didn't reach that life raft? I wouldn't have been able to swim back to the boat. There's no... I just swim 30 feet away from the boat. I grab the life raft right away, turn around, just start swimming as hard as I can, get back to the boat. So the boat's still facing west, the front of the boat is. I come up, the raft sits against the boat, so the wind is blowing it against the boat, but it still starts to drift. So I grab the rope on the side of the boat and I just hold it. I held that rope for about 45 minutes. Every time I got hit by a wave, it would rip the rope out of my hands. So I had a cut from here down to here. You can still kind of see some of the scarring, but this was down to the bone. And think about that seawater getting in your hand like that. So every time water getting out, I'm just like, oh, I'm in so much pain. For 45 minutes, I sat there in pain. But I'm like, I need to hold on to this life raft because this is going to save us. So the whole time that's happening, Tommy's in the front gathering supplies that we need. He grabs a sat phone, Garmin GPS, a radio, and just supplies, right? So we all end up getting in the life raft. We tie up to the boat. Within 5 minutes, we push away, and we get hit by a wave, and the whole fucking front end of the boat goes into the life raft, inside the life raft. And the boat has shark teeth on it, right? So it's just a giant shark coming in there. And we're like, no. Yeah. I'm slapping. I'm like, no. So we push it away because I'm terrified it's going to sink, right? Because the life raft was already sinking. Yeah. Because as we were getting in, I was already inside. Chad was cutting shit off the side of the boat, and he handed me the knife because he didn't want to drop it. So I put it in my mouth. And there was a rubber handle, so I bit down on that motherfucker hard, right? And he grabs me a bag. I throw the bag in. Right as I go to grab the knife, we get hit by a wave. The rope rips out of my hand, and I go, fuck. The knife pops out right in the top tube of the life raft. So I throw the knife, and I jam my thumb inside the life raft. And I look at Chad, and he's like, are we dead? And I was like, no, we're good. So I sat there for like 6 hours, my thumb inside that fucking thing, too. Eventually found a cork, but the cork sucked, and it was still leaking. So we had to pump it up with a pump every 30 minutes and make a call on the radio every 30 minutes. Now, we all had personal beacons. We assumed that the race knew, the Coast Guard knows, and they're on the way. So we said in the video, there's a documentary coming out called Defying Death on the Atlantic. It comes out on PBS on Memorial Day. And I said in the video, because there's a video of us in the life raft, because Will had his phone, and I said 18 hours to rescue, because they always told us we're only about 18 hours away from rescue, because the rescue boat was supposed to be close enough. So we thought that the rescue boat was coming for us. So we still had that little bit of hope, right? So we sit there for 18 hours in this life raft. About 2 hours before we get rescued, we're making a call on the radio, and we heard a mic click. I was a dispatcher for 8 years. I know somebody heard us. We can't hear them because we can only hear for 7 miles. They have repeaters on their ships. They can hear much farther. Mm-hmm. I'm like, say it again, but this time say, we cannot hear you. If you can hear us, give us 2 mic clicks. And we were click, click, and we all just start fucking sobbing. We were so happy, dude. But, it wasn't all sad in the life raft. A couple hours after we got in the life raft, the sun came up. We decided to do like an inventory.
So the boat sunk, right?
It's still floating somewhere in the Atlantic because it's compartmentalized with air, so it'll never sink.
So your stuff is still up.
It's going to wind up on shore somewhere. Yeah, my passport, my phone, all of my challenge coins. All of my challenge coins.
Why'd you bring all your challenge coins?
Because I was taking pictures of them, and I was going to send a picture to everybody who gave me those coins and say, "Hey, I took these with me on the ocean."
Oh.
All gone. Luckily, I got a dispensed round from an Apache helicopter. My girlfriend forgot to send me that, and I was really mad at the time. I'm so happy she didn't send me that.
Okay.
I'm so happy I still have that. But anyway,
so there's a bag of treasure waiting to be found.
Yeah.
From you. Okay.
So we get rescued, and there's video of us getting rescued on the documentary too. So we climb the ladder. I'm the first one out, and then everyone else gets in, and there's this Russian guy. I'm sorry. Back to the life raft. So Will, they all chewed Zins, right? I had never chewed before, and I started chewing Zins on the ocean because we're bored. And Will goes, "Oh man, we didn't grab any Zins." And Tommy goes, "Someone didn't check their immersion suit bag." And Will's like, so Tommy, when he was in the cabin getting supplies, it was filling up with water, and a log of Zins floated by, and he's like, "We might need that." So he put that in the survival bag. And so Will's digging through, and he pulls out this log of Zins. He goes, "Yes!" And we're like, "Yeah!" Like, this isn't going to save our fucking lives. You know? This is nothing, right? It's just one little tiny commodity. But that little thing brought us so much joy at that moment, dude. There was a moment when the sun went down that night. That's when it got really quiet.
Okay.
We were all very quiet.
Your thumb was still in the hole?
No, we had found a cork, and the cork was in there, but it just got really quiet. I think we were all kind of accepting our fate because we hadn't had any notification yet. We hadn't made contact yet. And I had inhaled so much water, I was dry drowning. So I'd thrown up like 15 times that day.
Oh,
so I'm puking my guts out, and it's all black. It's just nasty looking shit. And the whole day I was breathing heavy. I was for 18 hours, right? So I'm exhausted. My body hurts. I'm just in my boxers. They're in their fucking immersion suits and everything. All right, so I'm freezing. I have one of those tin blankets on me, one of the foil blankets.
Yeah.
And if we didn't get rescued in the next 12 hours, I probably would have died. So I was kind of at the point where I don't think I'm going to make it. And a thought crossed my mind, right? Because it's 4 guys in this life raft. It's going to make it really hard for us to survive because there's not a lot of room, and it's slowly starting to sink. If we had less weight in here, it'd probably be a lot easier.
Can you kind of describe how big that raft was?
The raft was about 4 feet wide by 4 feet wide with 4 guys that are all about 200 pounds.
So smaller than this stage.
So we were sitting like this. My feet were on Chad. Chad's feet were on Will. Will's feet were on Tommy. Tommy's feet were on me.
Oh, dang.
For 18 hours. It was wild. So I started thinking, like, I think they have a better chance of survival if I go. I was like, because I don't think I'm going to make it.
That voice was creeping in again.
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't want to die. The beautiful part was, and that raft was the first time I ever wanted to live. Ever. I'm like, I have to make it back. And a lot of people would think, because of the kids, because of my girlfriend, because of my family, I was like, there's people that they need me. I was like, the guys who call me, what if they have no one else to call? So I'm like, I had to hold on to that. It was the hope of knowing that I'm making a difference, and I want to keep doing that, and I'm not done. Yeah,
your life matters.
You know, and I tell people all the time, I've seen my future, right? Because in my speeches, I always talk about build yourself into the hero that you wanted to be. Be that hero who could have saved you, right? And I always tell people, like, you need to be your own hero. And I tell people all the time, like, I'm my own hero. Not right now. Like, I don't see myself right now as my hero. 5 years from now, that guy's my hero. I cannot wait to be him.
Okay, Matthew McConaughey.
And fuck you. I came out with it before Green Light came out. I've been saying that before Matthew McConaughey.
I believe you.
He stole my shit. I will fight him. But,
yeah.
But I kept saying, like, I've seen my future, and this isn't how it ends. I was like, I got more work to do. I was like, I'm not done. So I held on to that hope the whole time. And when we got rescued, the second my feet touched that deck, I grabbed the first Filipino dude that I could find, because it was all Filipino crew. I hugged him and I kissed him on the forehead. I kissed him on the forehead because he was so short. And like, this is the first thing, you know. I would have kissed him on the lips. He was taller. But I hugged the shit out of that guy. Like, I'm pretty sure I heard him. I was squeezing the fuck out of that guy. I was like, thank you. I was like, rescue my friends. And, you know, there's this guy, the chief operator. He comes over. He's like, what are you doing here? In like a Russian accent. I was like, we're rowing a boat across the ocean. She's like, that's not a rowboat. I was like, yeah, I know. We've been in a life raft for 18 hours. And I was like, where are we going? He's like, better you don't know. I was like, oh, we're going to Russia. He's like, worse, Canada. We're like, yes, it's the right continent. Dude, the fucked up part is we didn't find out a couple months after, but we found out that night that no one was looking for us. So we go up and we make a phone call to the owner, the president of the organization that we were rowing for. And he goes, hey guys, how's it going? We're like, how's it going? He's like, what's wrong? And Will puts on the phone. He goes, they weren't even looking for us. And so we find out a couple months later that our beacons went off and the U.S. Coast Guard got our alarms. They sent it to Cape Verde. There were 6 other capsized that night before us, and they assumed ours was a false alarm and deleted our alarm. The race didn't know. Nobody knew. So that boat that rescued us was the only boat within 500 nautical miles. If that boat didn't rescue us, I would not be alive. I don't think I would have made it.
It's a massive blunder.
It's amazing. That boat was going from South Africa to Canada, right? So it was such a weird route. And the only boat in 500 nautical miles for them to hear us, like they told us afterwards they thought that we were pirates. Like they thought that we were lying because like we didn't specify exactly what was going on. But when they rescued us, the crew was amazing. I taught the chef.
They're the ones that had to click?
Yeah.
On the mic? Yeah.
I taught the chef how to make American pizza. So this was on the 28th, and we had a huge New Year's Eve celebration. And they put like shit on the walls that said congratulations or welcome aboard, Nick, Tommy, Chad, Will. And we had like, they were all Filipino and a couple Croatians and a couple Ukrainians. So we had a huge feast for New Year's, and I made 2 giant pizzas, and they had never had American pizza before. Mm-hmm. And I told them it's called Papa Rahn's because I made pizza in the military, and my nickname was Papa Rahn. And so that chef is the only person in the world who has my recipe. And I was like, look, if I see a Papa Rahn's open up in the Philippines, I'm going to be pissed. I was like, I better get it cut. But I was in the kitchen cooking with him almost every day because it was 15 days we were on board with them. We had nothing to do. And
so you're a bona fide sailor.
I guess, yeah, sure. I'm a chef.
You have more experience in the water than probably half the Navy.
But yeah, we get rescued, and we port in Montreal, Canada, and we drive to the hotel.
Hey.
And their wives and my girlfriend were waiting for us in the lobby. We get out of the elevator, and they fucking bum rushed us into the elevator. They were screaming at the top of their lungs. Mara jumped in my arms, and I was just, I hugged the shit out of her. Yeah,
so who handled the logistics on that end to get all the spouses up there?
The night we got rescued, I was the first one to make contact with Mara. And so I told her this. I'm like, babe, I love you. I need you to hear that and understand that. We're okay. I was like, but I need you to buy a ticket to Montreal because our boat sank and we're on a ship heading to Montreal. And she's like, wait, what? And like this girl, man, just a fucking gangster. Like she just went to work. There was no panic. There was no stress. It was just like, okay, what do you need? I was like, my wallet gone, passport gone, phone gone, everything's gone. All I have is my bracelet and a shirt. I was like, I got nothing else. So within 2 days, she got me all new credit cards. She got me a new debit card. She even bought me a new wallet. She got me a new phone. She tried to get me a driver's license, but Minnesota, you got to be there. And she got all the girls, everyone talked to each other. All the wives kind of were in a chat group together. And then the owners of Fight or Die, they coordinated everything. And so we spent, the night that we got to the hotel, I decided I wanted to go sit in the hot tub because my body hurts, right? And I made a mistake. We jumped in the pool. I'd almost drowned twice that night. Mm-hmm. Well, 3 times, if you think about it. I got in the pool, I walked in, and I dove underneath the water and immediately had a panic attack.
You think? Yeah.
And I freaked out, I inhaled water, I get up, I was coughing, and I was fucking crying, and I was just losing my shit, and Mara came over and hugged me, and I'm like, no. I was like, no, I'm not gonna be that guy.
Well, so your body remembered what happened and was reenacting the whole thing. Yeah.
So I dove my ass back onto the water, and I held my breath, and I stayed underwater. And I did this for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and I was like, all right, I'm good. Overcame my fear of water in fucking 5-10 minutes. I was like, no. You know, what would you tell a veteran to do in this situation? The whole time on that life raft, I kept going over my 6 principle process. I kept saying, okay, what would you say to a veteran who's in this situation? How would you coach somebody through this, right? And the big thing was hold on to hope, right? Always have hope. Never lose that. Mm-hmm. So when we got back, I had migraines for about 45 days. This was the worst TBI I'd ever had. And I got super depressed. I wrote up the dissolution papers for the nonprofit. I got super depressed. I was getting ready to get rid of the nonprofit. I was like, I'm done. I was like, obviously the fracture between me and the other 3 guys, we don't talk anymore. I'm not going to get into the details of that, but I wish them well. I'd lost 3 of my friends, and I almost fucking died, and I just felt like a failure. So I was like, I'm done. I was going to give up the nonprofit. I was literally sitting there typing up the dissolution papers. I was like, I'm done. And Mara came up behind me, said, "What are you doing?" I was like, I'm shutting down the nonprofit. She's like, "No." She's like, "Give it a few months." She's like, "Give it a few months. Just don't do anything with it." She's like, "You're going to regret that. Don't do it." So I decided not to, but I saved the file and I left it on my computer for the day that I decided I'm done. She ended up calling the guys from Fight or Die. They have a connection with the Marcus Institute of Brain Health in Colorado. And they, behind my back, got me set up and pretty much made me go out there. And then shortly after that, my buddy Steve, he was actually one of my crisis calls. He called the crisis line in 2020, and I helped him start a nonprofit because he had no purpose. And I'm like, "What do you love?" He said, "I love fishing." It's like, "Start a fishing nonprofit." Initially, he told me to go fuck myself. But a week later, he called me back. X22 Adventures, let's go. So my girlfriend called him. Steve told me she was crying. And she's like, "He's not right. Like, he's not okay." I didn't leave my house for 45 days. I was like, "Fuck this, I'm done." So they forced me to go down to Florida. He started a fishing retreat for me. I didn't find out until the second retreat. But I went down there and it helped. And he told everybody down there, "Hey, talk to Nick about your problems." Because he knows me, right? I'm going to help people. And so one guy's having an issue with his marriage. One guy was having an issue with marketing because he makes his own fishing lures. So I gave him, steps, and now the guy can't fill orders because he's got so much shit going on. And I just did what I do. I went to work. And I'm like, these motherfuckers tricked me. I was like, they tricked me into wanting to do this again. Motherfuckers. But the ironic thing was, when I was on that life raft, I was thinking about, what are my regrets? I know I'm a good dad. My kids love the shit out of me. Love the shit out of my kids. I was good to my girlfriend. I was good to my dad. I was good to my stepmom. Obviously don't have a relationship with my mom, but I was like, I'm generally good to people. I'm nice to people. I care about people. And I was like, I've done everything I want to do except stand-up comedy, which I know a lot of comedians laugh at that. They're like, "Comedy?" I was like, "Yeah, because it's something I've always wanted to do, but I never had the balls to do it." I've done everything else. I've drove race cars.
Is that a joke?
Yeah, kind of.
Comedians laugh at someone wanting to do stand-up comedy.
Yeah, they think that it's so stupid, right? Because I've done everything else. I've driven race cars. I've climbed mountains.
What were they doing before they became stand-up comedy?
Yeah, like I've helped people overcome completely traumatic shit. I've done all this amazing, cool shit, but the one thing I've always really wanted to do was comedy. I just never did it.
Did the thought scare you? Like nerves?
Yeah. Like I went to open mics and signed up. My name was called and I left. I was scared. I couldn't do it.
I wanted to leave when you called.
I hadn't left my house in about 45 days, and I got in an argument with my girlfriend. It was my fault because PTSD was flaring up, right? Everything was attacking me. So I'm going to attack you. All right. So I left and I was fucking pissed. And I looked up open mic in Minnesota and I saw Sisyphus Brewing. And they said, if you put a star by your name, you get up automatically. So
what was the company?
Sisyphus Brewing. It's right next to Dunwoody. So I went there and I did my first set and it fucking went well. I actually got the crowd to fucking laugh a lot. And what
was one of the jokes?
This one's pretty known, but I always talk about the whole "thank you for your service" thing. I was like, I was in the military. It's always really weird when people say "thank you for your service," mostly because I spent most of my time jerking off in a porta-john overseas. Yeah. That one killed, dude. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, I might be okay at this. And since then,
I can't show this podcast to my kids.
But I needed something, and then I ended up buying a motorcycle in spring because I crashed my motorcycle in the military in 2017, and when was it? It was 2011. And I'd been terrified of motorcycles. I was like, okay, I need to get some power back. So I bought a motorcycle to overcome my fear of motorcycles. And now I love it. Like literally 5 minutes on that bike, my fear was gone. So I'm like, okay, I can overcome things still. Mm-hmm. And going to Marcus Institute was really helpful. And then in May or June of 2023, I took a mega dose of mushrooms for the first time.
Marcus Institute
of Brain Health in Aurora, Colorado.
Okay.
But I took a mega dose of mushrooms in the summer of 2023, and I made the mistake of going to see Guardians of the Galaxy 3 in 3D on mushrooms. It was a rough time. 10 minutes in, I grabbed my girlfriend's arm. I was like, "Are there people that look like animals on the screen?" She's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "All right, cool." But something happened. We were driving home. She drove, and I was telling her, I was like, "Look, don't do your counselor bullshit on me. Just listen," because she's a drug addiction counselor. And I'm like, I've been through so much. And there's a quote, and I keep going back to the movie. Hector in the Search for Happiness. There's a point where he's in China and he climbs up and he's with a bunch of Buddhist monks. And he's talking to a guy. He's like, you've been arrested. You've been a felon. You've lost family. You've lost in life. How are you so happy when you've been through so much? He said, it's because I've been through so much. And that kind of dawned on me. Like, I've been through a lot of shit and I've overcome all of it. I can overcome this too. And I'm high on mushrooms, right? So you're still in control, but you're so open. And I told her, I was like, I have no reason to be depressed. I have everything.
Yeah.
I was like, I have everything that I need in life. You know, I might not have as much money as I want, but that's nothing. I was like, I have no reason to be depressed. I was like, I'm done. I was like, I am no longer depressed. I was like, my depression is gone. That part of me is done. And I haven't been depressed. I haven't had a suicidal thought since that night.
You want to hear my
2 years ago.
philosophy of what a man is and how
Sure.
if it's not achieved, depression will happen? So I believe what a man is as created by God. A man is designed to be a protector, to provide, to build, to be a net positive to his environment and to everyone within his circle, micro then outward. And if said man isn't producing protection and growing everything, then by default depression will come in because I'm not achieving what I know that I'm worth, right? And so there's this disconnect that happens. But if you are achieving these protocols that I think men are designed to do, we're supposed to go out into an area and help build it up. Go out to the wilderness and create a cabin and a community and a city. And it's obviously we can't do that by itself, but if you join community as other like-minded men that are achieving their goals in life, yeah. And if you don't do that, you become distracted because you're depressed, and there's tons of society that.
I think the biggest issue I was still struggling with is I have a saying in my speeches where most people are dragging anchors behind them and they don't realize it's not chained to you. You're holding on to it. Just let go. And I was still dragging those anchors, man. I just had to let go. And when I let go that night, it's gone. Like, I genuinely wake up happy sometimes.
So you didn't do any therapy?
That's so weird. I did a lot of therapy. Like at Marcus Institute, I did EMDR therapy. Okay. But this was after my mushroom trip, right?
Right.
Because I went to Marcus for a week. You go for like an assessment and then you come back. So I was already doing better by the time I went to Marcus. So
did the VA cover that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I need to take one of those.
It's hard to get into, but I got connections, so I've helped 3 veterans get there now. But yeah, I mean, I went to Marcus Institute in the fall, did my Colorado trip in August, and it's just I just jumped right back into it, man. And then in 2023, in like August, I started doing carpentry again. I was helping build a dispensary for my friend Mike, and my buddy Kyle would have been his shop, and I was talking to him about the whole cannabis thing. And I'm always struggling to bring donations in from the nonprofit, right? We average about $50K a year. I'd like 100 because we could do a lot more. And I'm always struggling to find different ways of bringing money in. And I'm a carpenter. I'm 100% permanent total disabled to the VA for like PTSD and back issues, shoulder, feet, all that other bullshit. And then cancer is what pushed me over to 100. And so I kind of have the freedom to explore the things I want to do, right? Because I can pay my bills on the 1st. Yeah. I can pay all my bills for the month. I don't have a lot left over though, and for the longest time, I was always trying to feed people off an empty plate. I'm trying to give and give and give and give, but I don't have the finances to give, right? So Tony Robbins has a saying, is like, if you want to help others, you need to become rich, because the more money you have, the more money you can give. Yeah. And so I took that to heart and I said, okay, I need to find a way to do this. And then I'm talking to Kyle, I'm like, okay, the profit margins for the cannabis industry in Minnesota are amazing. So the next day I went home and I filed an LLC for Warriors Garden LLC. And we fought for a couple months to get this open, but we opened April 1st, which, April 1st of this year will be 1 year in operation. And obviously I dove into comedy pretty hard. I've only done maybe 15, 20 open mics, and then I've done a shitload of paid shows. I'm already doing showcases as a feature. I host the shows here. And then I decided I want to blend the nonprofit in with the business as much as possible. So it's called the Warrior's Garden, Warrior's Next Adventure. We donate a portion of the proceeds to the nonprofit every comedy show. So 80% goes to the comedians, 20% goes to the nonprofit. Because I truly believe that comedy and laughter are two things that really can help somebody in a tough time, right? Because sometimes if you can't fix the problem, it's okay to laugh about it, right? And laughter is just, when you get into the science behind it, you're releasing oxytocin and endorphins when you laugh, right? That's what makes you feel loved and happy, right? So makes sense. And my goal is to use this store to fund the nonprofit and multiple other nonprofits that are doing really good things that just don't have the funding.
Yeah.
So I keep helping more people like yourself, my friend.
So we got connected in, I think it was late 2022.
I think so. Yeah.
You made a post on Facebook. I don't know how we got. I don't even know how, but I remember the first post being.
It was.
Is there anybody?
It was a soldier a veteran who killed himself, and his wife was trying to clean out the house, and we had to redo the house. Yep. I was looking for other carpenters, and we got connected. And then I found out about your situation.
I can help with that the person I was with then, she kind of scolded me. She's like, what business do you have? Like, I can handle this situation. The situation isn't going to trigger me into nothing. It's me helping out. Why should anyone else have to see stuff like that? Yeah.
Well, the big thing is too, is like that book, The Book of Joy. I think people should read it, but if you want to experience joy, help others experience joy.
Yeah.
You have to continue to work on yourself though. Mm-hmm. You can't put your shit aside just to work on others. And that's something that I continue to, I wouldn't say struggle with, but I'm not the greatest. All right. I will put my shit aside to help somebody because it's a lot easier to help somebody else. It's really hard to help yourself. Mm-hmm. Right. But I'm in a situation now where all of my stress comes from business. Right. And that's okay. It's a stress that I chose because I truly believe that I can use this as a vessel to fulfill my purpose. Yeah. So it's amazing how many customers I have that come in here and I can feel their energy. I can tell they're just not having a good day. And I've lost count of how many of my customers end up sitting on that couch with me and we start talking. And I realize that my true joy is getting through to people and helping them realize their potential. Everyone has unlimited potential. It's just how much are you willing to unlock?
Right.
Are you willing to dig and get deep and find out what are some of the things that are slowing me down? What are some of the traumas in my past that might be getting me to think about other things and keeping me away from reaching my potential? Mm-hmm. How do we break it down? How do we find out what is the thing that we need to work on? And most people that talk about the surface level stuff, like the stress, the anger, the anxiety, you're like, okay, that's not the problem. That's a reaction to the problem. Yeah, it's a symptom of the problem. All right. And it's a pretty beautiful thing when you, just by asking questions, right? I never implant things into people, but I ask specific questions because I want to hear a specific answer. And if I don't get that specific answer, I'm going to keep asking questions until I get that answer. Right. And the answer is always like, what is your innermost trauma? What is the one thing that continues to hold you back? What's that anchor that you're holding on to? Right. How can we get you to let go of that fucking anchor?
I think that's a lot of people's problems.
It is.
But you can't, how do you communicate that? It's because they'll deny. I've had people deny straight to my face when I can see the situation. And I'm not held no anchor.
So the thing with neurolinguistic programming is getting people to say what the problem is without you telling them what the problem is. So if I say, you know what your problem is, you're going to say, fuck you, right?
Like which one?
But if I keep asking questions and we get to the problem and I say, okay, so what is the main thing slowing you down? Like what is something from your past? What's your relationship with your father? What's your relationship with your mother? What are some things that happen that you might feel shame about? Right, and it always comes down to usually one or two things. That is the root of the problem. Now there could be multiple roots, right? Trauma is trauma. Each trauma can cause a different root, right? How do we start getting in and chopping those roots down? How do we get inside? How do we find it?
So are you gonna name one of them? Because if you ask me, I would say one of those things is absolutely accountability or responsibility.
I would say shame.
Their part in the situation.
I think shame is a very, very overlooked thing, right? Like for me, after my first wife, I have never cheated on anyone again. Before her, never cheated. That's not who I am. I've always been 100% against that, especially in marriage. That's not what I do.
Right.
That was the biggest shame for me for a long time. All right. And then I tried to kill myself. That shame right there, right? The fact that I almost took myself away from this world. I feel shame about that before because the former version of myself tried to take me away. Right. And again, what if I'm still sitting on that rock and this is all what could have been? Right. So I still have a lot of shame engulfed in all of that. Right. But I've accepted it. I've accepted that that is no longer the version of who I am. I've created a different version of who I wanted to be. And now I actively get to be that person every day. But you can't stop there. Once you achieve it, you have to find out, okay, what's next? Right? It's a way of finding out how you can be satisfied and you can be content with where you are, but you realize and you understand, okay, there's more work to be done. That's like somebody getting in shape, right? Like right now with the way my body looks, I'm not happy with the way it looks.
Well, round is a shape.
Fuck you. I don't hate the way that I look. I don't think that I look unattractive. I don't think that I look ugly. I don't think I look too skinny, too fat, none of that shit, right? I'm not where I want to be. I'm still comfortable in my body. I'm comfortable with who I am, but there's a version of what I want to look like that I know I can get there. It's just not really something that's very high on my priority list right now. Right now, it's getting the business operational. It's getting the business to be successful so I can help more people, so I can have a better life for my family. You know, and it's just what's the most important to you right now? And for me, the most important thing is getting the comedy club off the ground, getting the business off the ground so I can keep making the nonprofit successful and make it efficient, right? How can I help? I don't want to expand. I don't want to have Warriors Next Adventure all around the country, right? Because that's how you water it down. I want to be singular focused, right? When you were struggling, I put all my attention into you. There's not a nonprofit out there that can do that,
right?
Because they're not singular. They're not focused on one veteran at a time. They're, how can we help 95 people for a few seconds, right? No, I want to change your fucking life. I want you to make the steps to change your whole life. Because if you change somebody's whole world, you quite literally have changed the world. Because in your version, it's changed your world. Right? So you have impacted the world. You've impacted the people around you, and you've made the world a better place. Every single veteran that you get to reach out to, the 137 veterans that are still here that called my crisis line, I now get to steal a little bit of that joy. When I see them post on Facebook, you know, a happy picture with them and their wife, or them and their kids, and nobody will ever know who's called my crisis line because I will never tell anybody. All right? People tell people, and I'm okay with that. That's not my thing to tell people. Right? But I get to watch them on Facebook now. I get to watch them post about awesome shit that they've done, businesses that they've started, nonprofits they've started, having new babies, getting new jobs, right? And none of that would have been possible if they didn't call me that day, if they had decided to go through with what they were doing, of course. And again, I have that conversation with every one of those veterans when they say, you saved my life. No, I didn't. All I did was give you tools. I didn't save your life. You're the one who took the advice. You were the one who walked those steps. You walked that path. I can't walk that path for you. I can walk side by side with you, but that's your path. It's not mine. I'm going to align my path with yours so I can help you and I can guide you and I can get you to those points. But you are the one ultimately that does the work. Because if I sit and have a conversation like this with a veteran and they do nothing with it, they continue doing meth, they continue drinking, that's their choice. It's on them. All right? But if they decide to take that information and completely reevaluate their life and say, okay, I need to completely refurbish this version of who I am, right? But how do you do that without knowing who you are, right? You need to know who you are right now, not who you used to be, not who you want to be. Who is Joseph right now, right? Until you can understand that, it is very hard to create a new future, right? Because we all have this version of who we think we are, right? Because you don't want to see who you are. If you're an alcoholic, they would say, well, it's not a problem, it's not a problem, it's not a problem. You're a fucking alcoholic. You're drinking 3 times a day, you're not paying your bills, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this, right? I'm not shaming you for it, but that's who you are right now. You have to accept that, right? But accepting it doesn't mean you're okay with it, right? When I was suicidal and I was depressed, I said, I don't want to be that person anymore. That day that I decided, watching that video of me tell everybody why I was going to kill myself, that person is now dead. That's not me. right? That is a former self, right? And now I get to be the person that I created. And anyone can do that. Anyone. I don't care what you've been through. I don't care what's happened to you. Anyone can completely redo their lives. Mm-hmm. It's not too late to start over. You know, that's the key to behind everything that I tell people. It is not too late. So,
well, I'm so happy that I'm able to represent your brand, the store.
Yeah,
I mean, it's an honor to, you know, try to take this all the way, the brand Warriors Garden all the way up to the top Mountain Head.
I'm excited for that, man.
I have a gift that I for you. Where's it at? Ah, here it is. Okay. So this is our first podcast, 001. And this is my unit patch that I had on my ACU.
Nice.
I took the Velcro off the back. And that's the engineer crest. So that's...
What is that?
That's the engineer crest.
Okay, nice.
For combat engineers.
Thanks, man.
So it's...
I'll add this to my collection. That's awesome.
Thanks, do you want to... I can include all the links for your business and all the...
Yeah, it's just
people want to know about
warriorsgarden.org and then warriorsnextadventure.com. And then everything on Facebook is Warriors Next Adventure. Warriors Garden, just the Warriors Garden, pretty easy to find us. The main thing is, I want to say this to every veteran listening to this, if you are struggling, reach out for help. There's always somebody there for you, and if you don't have anybody, call us.
Always hope. Hey, it's great having you,
Love you, man.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.